The first is that the hijab has to cover the whole of her body. Okay, not parts of the body, the whole of the body. Obviously apart from the face and the hands like we mentioned. The second condition is that it has to be thick enough so that you can't see through it. Or in other words, it cannot be see-through. Sometimes they're wearing something and you think, oh, it's covered. But in reality, you can see through it. You can see their skin color, for example. Yeah, that is not a full hijab. Obviously, if the woman doesn't know, then she's forgiven for her ignorance of this, the fact that she didn't know. However, if somebody was to tell her, then she'll have to change. Thirdly, it cannot be tight-fitting. It has to be loosely fitted. There's no point of the hijab if it's tight and you can see everything. The fourth condition the ulama mentioned is that it cannot be something which is attractive. So if they have abaya, or the abaya, and then they got designs everywhere, left, right, center, different colors, that's not a part of the hijab. That's the opposite of the purpose of the hijab. A little bit here and there, because girls like the designs, a little bit here and there, so maybe some dark colors, small things, that's okay. But some people, some of the women go overboard, and that is not allowed. The fifth is that she's not allowed to perfume it. Again, that defeats the whole purpose of the hijab. She walks past again, he smells it, then obviously that's going to attract a guy. The sixth is that it should not be a dress of fame, shuhra. What this basically means, and this is also for a guy as well. Okay, this is a condition that's also for a guy. Which is, it should not be a clothing where it just looks strange in the community. Okay? So for example, in Saudi Arabia, everyone wears white thobes, okay? If somebody comes out with like a green and yellow and all these different colors, in Saudi Arabia, he's going to stand out. Especially if he's Saudi. If he's a foreigner, they let them off. Okay? But that's not allowed. The Prophet ﷺ, he prohibited anybody wearing those clothes which are shuhra, meaning it's out of the ordinary. It's not something normal. And this makes the person stand out. This does not include wearing nice clothes. Wearing nice clothes is something good, as long as there's no kibr and no arrogance that comes with that. But however, those clothes that just stand out. Okay? If everybody wears thobes, for example, you come out and you wear jeans. Imagine Imam Ashnabi leading Salah in jeans. You're going to think that's weird, right? Even though all the Muslims in England wear it. But in that community, it's considered libas al-shuhra. Number 7, it should not resemble the dress of men. Okay? And this is that clothes which is specific to a man. If you look at it, you say, okay, that's the clothing of a man. Such as earrings. That's for earrings is for a woman. And a man cannot wear earrings because earrings specific for a woman. Or specific for a man. Allah, I can't think of an example right now. But anything which is specific for a man, then a woman can't wear that. Number 8, she's not also allowed to wear anything which is specific to the non-Muslim women. Okay, something specific to the non-Muslim women. If all the Muslims are wearing it also, that's different. But if it's something, you look at it, or that's specific to a non-Muslim woman. Like for example, the nuns, they have that specific way of dressing. A Muslim woman cannot dress like that. Okay, not in the exact same way. And same for a man. The vicars have this certain type of collar. And the ulama say that even a Muslim cannot wear that type of collar. Why? Because that's the uniform of a vicar. Okay? And the last one, there's not allowed to be any crosses or any pictures of animals or any living creatures on the abaya. And that again is for men and it's for women. This was just an extra benefit because it links in with covering the awrah, because the woman, the Prophet said, al-mar'atu awrah, the full woman, her whole body is a awrah. And this mentions a benefit. We'll carry on and we'll move on to the next condition, inshaAllah. Now.
The seventh condition of the salah, dukhul al-waqt, entrance of the proper time. The proof that this is from the Sunnah is the hadith of Jibreel alayhi salam, when he led the Prophet in one prayer during the initial time, and during the last part of the hour, it's saying to him afterwards, O Muhammad, the prayer is between these two times.
Okay.
Reported by Ahmad al-Nisa'i, Tirmidhi, and Ibn Hibban. And also Allah's statement, verily the prayer is enjoined on the believers at 6 hours. Surah An-Nisa, ayat verse 103. The proof that the prayers are in 6 times is in Allah saying, establish the prayer from midday till the darkness of the night. and recite the Quran in the early dawn. The recitation of the Quran in the early dawn is ever is Surah Al-Isra.
Okay, the next condition is the entrance of the time. The entrance of the proper time. By ijma', nobody is allowed to pray the salah before the time starts. Nobody is allowed to pray the prayer before the time starts. If Dhuhr starts at 1 o'clock, you cannot pray at 12:55. One brother asked me a question today. What about a person who starts his salah in the time but he finishes it after the time? If a person delays his salah without any reason to that time where there's not enough time for him to pray, then that is haram and it's not allowed. Okay. However, if a person, let's say, wakes up late and he prays, he starts within the time and he just ends up finishing maybe over the time, then that's not considered qada, that's considered him praying on the correct time. But that's because he had a Islamic legitimate reasoning or excuse. What are the times for prayers? Now, the timing for prayers in the books of fiqh, there's full chapters on this. The simple answer to this is just get the timetable of the masjid and follow that. Wherever the start time is, that's the start time. Where the end time is, that's the end time. Okay, and there's no need to argue or to go into too much depth about that. Then the Shaykh, he brings the dalil of Hadith Jibreel, and this is a long hadith. This is a long hadith. At-Tirmidhi says that it's hadith and Hasan, and the summary of the whole hadith is that Jibreel alayhi salam came to the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam, and at every salah, at the beginning of every salah until the end, he led the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam in a prayer. Okay, for every single salah. And at the end, he told the Prophet ﷺ that the prayer is between these two times. That shows us that each prayer has a specific time. And then the Shaykh also brings the ayah أقم الصلاة لدلوك الشمس إلى غسق الليل وقرآن الفجر إن قرآن الفجر كان مشهودا. Read translation of that.
Establish the prayer from midday till the darkness
okay.
of the night.
Midday till the what do you say? Till the darkness of the night. This midday till darkness of night, that includes Dhuhr, Asr, Maghrib and Isha. And then?
And recite the Quran in the early dawn.
Early dawn, which salah is that? Salat al-Fajr. So all 5 salawat are mentioned in this ayah, like it's mentioned by Imam al-Sa'idi in his tafsir. When he says here Quran al-Fajr, a lot of people think that what this means is memorizing Quran at the Fajr time. Rather, the meaning of Quran al-Fajr is reciting the Quran in the Fajr Salah itself. Okay? It's the Fajr Salah itself, not any Quran that you recite after the Fajr Salah. Now, move on to the next one.
The 8th condition, استقبال القبلة, facing the Kaaba. The proof for this is Allah's statement, subhanahu wa ta'ala, verily we have seen the turning of your face towards the heaven. Surely we shall turn you to a qibla that will please you. So turn your face to the direction of Masjid al-Haram. Surah al-Baqarah.
Okay, so the next condition is that you have to be facing the Qibla. And notice very carefully, the ulama, what did they say? Facing the Qibla, and they don't say facing the Kaaba. They don't say facing the Kaaba. What's the difference? Now this depends on the state of the person. If the person is inside of Makkah and he can see the Kaaba, it's obligatory upon him to face exactly the Kaaba. Okay? However, a person who's far away, for example us, okay, it's not obligatory upon us to face 100% exactly the Kaaba, because that's impossible. Okay, from here, we're not going to exactly hit the Kaaba. It might be a few degrees this way, a few degrees that way. So the ulama say a person cannot see and is far away, so even in Medina or anything like that, then he should face the direction of the Kaaba. And the Prophet ﷺ said, مَا بَيْنَ الْمَشْرِقِ وَالْمَغْرِبِ قِبْلَةً. What is between the west and the east, that's the Qibla. So you have a bit of leeway. Some of them might say 90 degrees this way, 90 degrees that way. Okay? But generally, you have a bit of leeway. So if somebody's praying here, obviously it's best to pray straight, but the salah is accepted. Okay, the salah is accepted. And what is considered facing is your abdominal area, your chest area. That part has to be facing the Qibla. Now.
The 9th condition, an-niyyah, the intention. It's raised in the heart, and as for vocalizing it, then this is the elevation. The proof for this is the hadith. Verily actions are based on intention, and verily every man will have what he intends.
Okay, so we talked about this in the wudu, which is the intention. You have to have the intention before praying. If somebody ends up doing all of the actions of the prayer, but his intention was just to do exercise, for example, then the salah is not accepted. And the niyyah is in the heart and it's not said out loud. So that what people before salah, they come out and they say out loud, oh, I'm praying 4 rak'at behind this imam in Alfurqan and I'm this and that. That's bid'ah, and that's not from the sunnah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. No.
The pillars of the prayer. The pillars of the prayer are 14.
Okay, so now he's going to mention the pillars of the prayer. How many conditions of the prayer were there? 9. What were they? What's the first? Islam. Then? Aql, intellect. Intellect, sanity. Oh, so sorry, yeah, sanity, intellect, same thing. After that? At-tamyiz. Then? La, niyyah, that's wudu. The fourth one is wudu. Rafu al-hadith, doing the wudu. The fifth condition? Removal, removal of impurities. The sixth? Covering the awrah. Seventh? Entrance of the time. Eighth? Facing the qibla. And the ninth? The intention. Okay? So these are the 9 conditions of the prayer. Now he's going to mention the pillars of the prayer. Okay, remember we said the condition is something which starts before the prayer and it carries out throughout the prayer. Now the pillars of the prayer, and this is those actions which are inside of the prayer. If somebody does not do any of these actions, whether he forgot, okay, out of forgetfulness or out of ignorance or anything like that, his salah is not accepted. Okay, that's what these pillars are. Pillar means it can never ever be lost, meaning it has to be there all the time. The same with the pillars of Islam. The same with the pillars of Islam. If you have the ability to do the pillars of the Islam, then you have to do it. You have no excuse. And how many are there? There are 14. Again, the Shaykh is going to mention all of them quickly in one go, and then he's going to go through each of them individually. No.
The first, standing if one has the ability to do so. The second, the opening takbir. The third, reciting Surah Al-Fatiha. The fourth, bowing, ruku'. The fifth, rising from bowing. Sixth, prostrating on all 7 limbs.
Sorry? La, don't read the hadith. It's not mentioned in the book.
The 7th, erecting oneself from it. The 8th, sitting between the 2 prostrations. The 9th, remaining tranquil, i.e. not rushing during all of these pillars. The 10th, maintaining the same sequence. The 11th, the final tashahhud. The 12th, sitting for the tashahhud. The 13th, sending salat on the Nabi, alayhi salatu wasalam. And the 14th, the final 2 tasleems.
Okay, so these are the 14 conditions of the prayer. Now the Shaykh is going to go through each of them individually. And in between, because if you notice, all of these are in order. All of these are in order of the salah. In between, he might mention here and there some of the sunan of salah, some of the sunnah du'as that one should mention. He will mention them in between, and here and there he'll explain what some of these mean. For example, Surah Fatiha, he'll explain what Surah Fatiha means. At-tahiyyatu lillah, he'll explain what that also means. So if you ever got confused, okay, which one exactly is the pillar, which is sunnah, go back to this. These 14, he mentions all the pillars together, all the 14 pillars now.
The first pillar of the salah, standing if one is able to do so. The proof for this is Allah's statement, God strictly the praise, especially the middle one, and stand before Allah with full submission, Surah Al-Baqarah.
So the first condition is that a person, he has to stand up if he has the ability to stand up. Okay? So if somebody wants to sit down and pray, and he has the ability to stand up, his salah is not accepted. Okay? And this is regarding the fard salah, the obligatory prayers. And this is by ijma', the consensus of the scholars. If a person is not able to stand up, and what we mean by ability here is he's ill and he's hurt himself, he's injured, he can't physically stand, or if he stands up, by him standing up, that'll make him become ill, or he can stand up, but if he does, that'll make a certain illness that he has become worse, or if he stands up, then it gives him so much pain that he's not able to have khushu' in the prayer. That's what we mean by a person not able to stand up. Not a little bit hurting, a little bit of headache. That doesn't count. Okay? But if a person cannot stand up, then he should sit down. And then if he cannot sit down, then he should lay down, like in the hadith of Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. When it comes to nawafil prayers, okay, then it's permissible for a person to sit down. And this is again by ijma'. Ibn Qadama, he says, لا نعلم خلافا في إباحة التطوع جالسا in Mughni. He says, we don't have any dispute that it's permissible for a person to sit down in the nawafil prayers. Okay. However, if a person prays and he sits down and prays a nafil prayer, like in the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, he only gets half the reward of the person standing up. What if a person, he physically stands up, he's messed up his legs, so he sits down and prays a nafil prayer. Will he get the full reward or half the reward? He will get the full reward because that's his ability, that's the most that he can do. As for a person who has the ability to stand up and then he still decides to sit down, then he's the one that will get half the reward.
What if before his injury he would sit down during his nawafil as well? So before he injured his leg, when he do his nawafil, he'd sit down, and now he's injured and unable to stand up, so he has to sit down.
You have to look at his intention. So obviously before he's only getting half the reward. Okay? Now afterwards, Allah, I don't know.
But it's Aisha on the hadith there. Prophet after Isha, the Sunnah to Rafa, he used to pray sitting. That is his way to do. So the thing is that we have to follow. Not like this, I will give a half of it or a full of it. This is one kind of hadith is coming. So I don't know. They're confusing the people.
Repeat that, please.
Prophet, hadith here, Isha time, Prophet he sat down and he do rakasa.
Okay, if the Prophet ﷺ, I have not heard this hadith, however, if the Prophet ﷺ did sit down for that hadith, for that salah, then you could, there's many ways to interpret that. Firstly, it could be specific to that prayer that he was doing. Okay? Secondly, just because the Prophet ﷺ did it, and this is why it's not able for a layman to go and read the hadith and just give a ruling like that. If the Prophet ﷺ many times he will do something, not because it's the best, but just to show it's permissible to do that. Okay? And the hadith that I brought, and it's authentic hadith, I'll give you the hadith if you want. Sahih Bukhari hadith number 1115, the Prophet ﷺ said, إِن صَلَّى قَائِمًا فَهُوَ أَفْضَلُ. If the person stands up and prays, it's better for him. وَمَنْ صَلَّى قَاعِدًا فَلَهُ نِصْفُ أَجْرِ الْقَائِمِ. And as for the one who sits sitting down, then he will have half the reward of the person standing up. Okay? So, Allah Alam, that hadith, bring me the hadith and we can look into it inshallah, maybe in the break. Otherwise, stick to what I said now.
The second pillar of the prayer.
And by the way, like we mentioned yesterday, anybody's got any questions, write them down on a piece of paper, please. Okay, write them down on a piece of paper and answer them later, inshallah. Yeah.
The second pillar of the prayer, the opening takbir. The proof for this is the hadith. Its opening is the takbir saying Allahu Akbar. And it's closed.
Okay, read it.
The proof for this is the hadith. Its opening, translators know, the word used in the hadith is tahrim, which has been translated as opening, but which more specifically means that which makes something forbidden. This is since with the opening takbir, the common actions of speaking and eating become forbidden, as one is now in the prayer. Is the takbir saying Allahu Akbar, and its closing, the translators know, the word used in the hadith is tahrim, which has been translated as closing, but which more specifically means to make something permissible. This is since with the closing takbir, the common actions of speaking and eating become permitted again, as one now is out of the prayer. Is the taslim saying Assalamu alaikum?
Okay. So what you read so far, this is the second pillar of the salah, which is takbiratu al-ihram, which is saying Allahu Akbar. Only the words Allahu Akbar, no other words are accepted. And people have to be very careful in the way they say the words. Okay? If you make a mistake in some of the words, especially those which are obligatory, then it could nullify your salah. For example, if somebody says Allahu Akbar, what does that mean? What does that mean? Is Allah the greatest? That changes the meaning completely. But what did he do? He just stretched the alif in the beginning. Okay? So you have to be very careful, and the same goes for Surah Al-Fatiha. And we'll get the Surah Al-Fatiha, especially it has it had a lot of tashdeedat, shaddas. You have to say each shadda, when you see a shadda, it's actually two letters. So make sure you say those words properly, not Rabbil Alameen. Rabbil Alameen, that's not really a shadda. Okay, Rabbil Alameen, like that. Okay, otherwise, depending on the mistake, it could nullify your prayer. So you say Allahu Akbar. Then he brings a hadith of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, where he says tahrimuha at-takbir. The thing which makes the salah haram is saying Allahu Akbar. What does it mean by making the salah haram? It means that by you saying Allahu Akbar, certain actions become haram, such as talking, eating, drinking, and so on. And then he says وَتَحْلِيلُهَا التَّسْلِيم. And that which makes the salah, halal, meaning it's halal for you to talk and eat and drink, is saying the taslim, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Now.
After this occurs the open supplication, which is supererogatory and goes Subhanakallah wa bihamdik wa tabarak asmuk wa ta'ala jadduk wa la ilaha ghayruk. Free from imperfections are you, O Allah, and all praise is yours. Blessed is your name, and there is no deity worthy of worship besides you. The meaning of Subhanakallah.
Okay. Now he says, after saying Allahu Akbar, you say al-istiftah, which is the opening dua. Okay, and he mentions the opening dua, Subhanakallahumma bihamdik wa tabarak asmuk wa ta'ala jadduk wa la ilaha ghayruk. And he says this is wa huwa sunnah. This is sunnah, meaning you do it, you get rewarded for it. But if a person misses this out and he goes straight to Surah Fatiha, his salah is accepted. His salah is accepted. Now this dua that is mentioned, in terms of authenticity, it's authentic. However, it's not the most authentic one. However, the ulama, they mention this in their books for two reasons. Okay? Firstly, because it's short and it's easier for people to memorize. Secondly, because of the meanings what is in it. Imam Ahmad, he preferred this dua over the others. Why? Due to the fact that this whole dua that you are saying is just praising Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And the Shaykh is going to explain what this dua means. Another dua which is authentic, which is in Bukhari and Muslim, which is Allahumma ba'id bayni wa bayna khatayaya kama ba'adta bayna mashriqi wal maghrib, until the end of the hadith, which basically translate, Oh Allah, distance between me and my sins just as you have distanced the east and the west. Oh Allah, clean me or cleanse me from my sins just as you clean a white thobe from dirt. Oh Allah, cleanse me from my sins with water and coolness. This is also another dua which is mentioned in Bukhari and Muslim. It starts off Allahumma ba'id bayni wa bayna khatayai till the end of the dua. But it's a bit longer than the one that the Shaykh has mentioned. And the one that the Shaykh has mentioned is Subhanakallahumma bihamdik wa tabarak asmuk wa ta'ala jadduk wa la ilaha ghayruk. Whether if nobody caught that dua that I said, I'll just give you a reference and you can just write it down or memorize it properly. Bukhari 744. It's in Bukhari, hadith number 744, and it's in Muslim 598. Okay? So if you want to memorize that dua, just go online, type in that hadith reference number, and then they'll come up and you can memorize that dua, inshallah. If the Imam is silent and you're able to recite Surah Fatiha, then in that silent, recite Surah Fatiha. However, if the Imam is constantly reciting, then then you don't have to recite Surah Fatiha. And in a hadith, the Prophet said, Qira'atul Imam, Qira'atun lil Ma'mum. That the recitation of the Imam it counts as a recitation for the ones who are following the Imam.